Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Destiny from Desphixs and welcome back to another video in the Django e-commerce. In this one, we'll get started working with Stripe payments in Django. That is what we'll be doing. Hopefully you will enjoy the video and learn something new. Consider dropping a like on the video and also subscribing to the channel. And also you should check out some of the links in the description below, as one of them might be useful for you. So let's get started. I will begin by opening up my code editor. And remember, in the last one, we worked with PayPal payments. So in this one, we will start up with Stripe. Now, I want you to come over to the Store app and open up the Views PY. And just down here, we will write a new function that is going to create a new Stripe payment intent for us and also return the URL, or rather the session ID, where we will redirect users to then make payments on Stripe. So let's get started. I'm going to call this one a Stripe payment, and over here I will pass. Make sure that you pass in requests, and order ID, and over here we pass. So the very first thing I want to do is include a CSRF exempt at the top, CSRF underscore exempt, but then we need to import this from django.views.decorator.csrf. So scroll all the way to the top and say from django.views.decorators. I believe that should be it. Yeah, decorators.csrf. We want to import CS. That it. Yeah, that should be it. Import CSRF exempt. Good. So with this now, you could take this decorator and put it over here, which means we want to exempt this function from the cross-site request for jury verification. Okay, so after you have done that, we need to think about how to go on with this logic. So by the time a user is about to pay using Stripe, that means they must have already added items to their cart and clicked on proceed to checkout, which then compiles the order in the back end and creates a new instance or a new order object for them, which means they want to pay for a particular order, right? And that also means that we need to go ahead and fetch the order using this order ID. So that is why we passed in order ID over here. So whenever this function is called, and a particular order ID will be passed to it, so that Stripe will know how to retrieve the amount that the user is going to pay for. Okay, so let's do this. Let's fetch the order. I will firstly remove this and say order should be equal to store underscore models. I believe we already have this. Dot product dot objects dot get. Then we need to say order underscore ID should be equal to order underscore ID. Very good. Then after we have done this, the next thing is to go ahead and instantiate Stripe using our API key. So say stripe.api underscore key should be equal to settings dot stripe underscore secret underscore key. So remember the env file that I provided for you guys. In there, you will see that you need to add Stripe secret key to the environment variable and also make sure that it exists in your settings py. Let me make sure. Okay, you can see it doesn't exist in my settings py. That means I need to go ahead and install it. Let me look for the section where I have installed PayPal there. So I need to say Stripe would be equal to env. Then we bring that in, but make sure that the env is lowercase env. Okay, and we also need to do the same thing for the public key. The public key should be env, and then we call the public key. Simple. So now that you have this over here, get back to your views py. The only thing that's left is to make sure that you import Stripe. So scroll all the way to the top again, and alongside or just below this import request, you also want to import Stripe. Okay, so that's everything you need to do. Now let's get back to the bottom. So now you can see that we're not getting any more warning. So after you have done this, the next thing we need to do is go ahead and create a checkout session. So this next part, I totally got it from Stripe's documentation, and here is how it goes. So you need to say checkout underscore session should be equal to, then using the Stripe package that we installed, let's go ahead and create a new checkout.session.create. So this basically means that we're creating a new checkout session, and then it needs to take in a couple of parameters. Firstly, starting with the customer email, not model. So customer underscore email, and over here you want to call this order.address.email. Very good. I want to make sure that this over here is order and not product. So I missed that initially. And now you can see address is being fetched over here. Very good. So after passing in the customer email, the next thing will be to pass in the payments methods that we want to use. So payments underscore method underscore types should be equal to, and for now, let's only make payments using cards, okay? And then we need to pass in a couple of parameters that Stripe is going to use to know how much this order is going to cost and how much to charge the user. So we will say line items should be equal to, then in the list, what you want to do is create a new dictionary in here. And in the dictionary, create the first one called price underscore data. And then you need to input some of the price data, like the currency, the product data, the amount, the unit amount, the quantity, and all that. Let's start with the currency. So currency should be USD. And then product data, product underscore data should be, over here I used double quotes and also single quotes. Let me use single quotes, okay? So product data, it shouldn't be a string. We should open up another dictionary in here. So all these are actually nested, and I don't want you guys to miss it. So please follow along carefully as we go ahead and write all this out. So in the products data, you need to go ahead and specify the name of the customer in a name key over here. And that is going to be gotten from order.address.fullname. Full underscore name. Very good. Now, just below the products data, you want to go ahead and add a unit amount. Unit underscore amount. And this is going to be in an integer order.total multiplied by 100. So this is how Stripe recommends that you send the order total to them, or the total amount you want to pay. Whatever the total amount you want to pay is in USD, go ahead and multiply it by 100, and Stripe will be able to take this and convert it back to the original amount and display it to the user. Okay, so below the price data, below this green column or braces, not column, braces, you need to go ahead and pass in quantity. And just stick with 1, okay? So you don't want to add in anything much for the quantity, just stick with 1. It's required and it mustn't be null. That is why you need to pass it in and just pass in 1, okay? Note, this quantity does not actually mean that it's how many items that the user is ordering. It doesn't mean that you should say order.quantity. No, just pass in 1, okay? And after you have done that, just below the list over here, we want to create other items for the checkout session, like mode. And what are we trying to do? We are trying to make a payment. It's not subscription. It's not anything else. It's payment, okay? And after this, we need a success URL. Success URL should be equal to requests.build absolute URI, build absolute URI. And in the build absolute URI, we need to reverse to. Then this is how the URL that we will reverse to is going to look. It's going to be store column stripe underscore payment underscore verify. Okay. And after that, we're going to say args should be equal to, and then in here is where we want to pass in order underscore ID. So this will be like the keyword arguments that will be appended to this particular URL over here. And what we want to be appended to it is the order ID, so that we can fetch the order ID and use it to validate the order, mark it as paid or mark it as failed if payments went through or failed. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So after you have done this in the order ID, make sure that you skip one of the square brackets and 2 parentheses. Then outside here, you want to say plus. Hopefully you can see this. Let me close out my sidebar so that you can see more things that I'm doing over here. Then you want to say plus, and we want to include the checkout session ID as a query parameter. So we will say session underscore ID should be equal to, and over here we open up 2 braces like that, or curly brackets, whichever one you want to call them. Then you need to pass in something that is called checkout underscore session underscore ID. Simple. There is nothing else that you need to do over there. Okay, so after you have done that, you can take it a step forward and append another query parameter like a payment method. So you could say payment, whoops, that should be in lowercase. So you could say payment underscore method should be equal to Stripe. Based on the fact that we have multiple payments methods on our e-commerce platform, it only makes sense that we store the particular payments method that the user is actually using to make the current payment, so that we know if users are actually using a particular payments method compared to others. Then we could deprecate those ones and, grow our platform. Hopefully this makes sense. So you actually need a way to watch what users are doing on your platform and all that. Now, after you have done that, I know reverse isn't imported. Let's see if there is a quick fix for that. Yeah, there you go, from Django.urls, and we should see that at the top. Let me see. From there you go. See, from Django.urls import reverse. All good. So with this now, we also need one more, and that is going to be the cancel URL. Please don't forget to add a comma over here so that you don't get a bug. Now duplicate this, and this one is going to be the cancel URL. Nothing really special, because an order may be failed or a user canceled the order. Not failed, a user canceled the order. We just want to return them back to the payments verify page and pretty much perform the same operation, checking if payments went through. If it didn't, we return them to the payment status page and display payments failed, just like we did for PayPal. Okay, so over here, you want to say cancel URL should be equal to requests.buildAbsolute_URI. Then we reverse to the same URL over here that verifies payments. But this time around, only what you want to add in is this. In fact, you could even go ahead and leave this and also leave this, but leaving all these ones doesn't really make any sense. So you could just go ahead and get rid of them. All right. So hopefully you followed along up to this part. Now, one thing that I like doing is printing the checkout session to see what's giving back to us. So over here, you could say checkout session and checkout session. Very good. And let's go ahead and return JSON response session ID. And what do we want to pass in? We want to pass in checkout session.id. So in this checkout session object or JSON, there is actually, it's not JSON. If it's JSON, you won't be able to directly call ID like this. If it's JSON, I think you will have to do something like this. So I think it should be like a query set object, something like that. So in this object here, checkout session, there is a field called ID, which basically holds the ID to the payments hosted page. And that is what we are pretty much returning to the front end. So by the time a user calls this function here, it will fetch the order, initialize the Stripe API key, create a new checkout session, and return them to the page where they will have to make the payments. And after the payment has been made, the next thing will be to go ahead and verify the payments. And to be able to do that, we need another function called Stripe Payment Verify, which we have referenced a couple of times here. So for Stripe payments verified, it's basically we will take the same parameters like request and order ID. So it only makes sense that it takes order ID because you can see here clearly we are already telling the success URL that the payments verify function is going to have the order ID as a parameter, as an argument. Okay, so that is why you need to pass this in. And just like we did before over here, you need to go ahead and fetch order here. Okay, and after you fetched order, you need to go ahead and grab the session ID from the query parameter by saying session underscore ID should be equal to requests.get, and over here we pass in session ID. Now you might be like, okay, where are we getting the session ID from? Remember when we appended it in the query parameter here? Can you see? So whatever is stored in this keyword called checkout session ID is what we grabbed based on this key and saved it in this variable here called session ID. I hope all this makes sense. So after you have done this, we then need to go ahead and fetch the session from Stripe based on the session ID by saying session should be equal to stripe.checkout.session.get. And what do we want to get? We want to get a particular session that is linked to this session ID that has just been paid for or that failed payments. Okay, so when you have done this, what you then need to do is go ahead and check if session dot payment. This is supposed to be called session. Okay, so if session dot payment underscore status is equal to paid, now this means that payment officially went through on Stripe's end. We can now go ahead and mark our order as paid and perform other operations. So over here we can then say if order dot payment status is still equal to processing. Now you might be asking, why do we check for this? Why don't we just go ahead and mark the order as paid if payment status is paid? Now, imagine that an order has already been marked as paid, and for some unknown reason, the user is trying to hit the payment verify endpoint again. An order that is already marked as paid should be paid, should remain as paid. We don't want to re-verify the order, except if you explicitly want to do that. Maybe you actually can't find the payment on your Stripe dashboard or something, and you want to re-verify the payment and reassign the order. That is only when you should make sure that you're not adding this. Okay, but I'm only adding this just for some security reasons, so that a user does not repay for the order that has already been paid for. I hope that makes sense. So if the payment status is still processing, what we need to say is order dot payment underscore status should be equal to paid. Very good. And after that, you need to go ahead and save the order just like this. Whoops, that should be this. Good. Now in the upcoming videos, we will go ahead and send emails, but for now we are not sending any email. So what we will do in the future is we will send email over here, and we will also send notification, in-app notification, and over here also we will send email to user or to customer. Okay, so after you have saved the order, go ahead and clear the cart by calling the clear cart items. So you see why it's really good to create helper functions. Now we did not have to explicitly start writing another function that will clear the cart. All we just did was call the function that we created in the last tutorial. Okay, so I believe that is pretty much it for now. In the upcoming video, we will go ahead and send emails. We'll send email to customer, and in a loop, we will then also send email to vendors. So let me put that over here so that we don't miss it. Send email to customer. And over here, we send email to vendors. Very good. Now, that is it. If payment goes through and everything is fine, what do we want to do? Let's go ahead and return. I'm trying to see if that is the right place to do this. Yeah, I think it should be. Let's go ahead and return redirect. And where do we want to redirect this user to? Now, in an F formatted string in the redirect method, I want to go ahead and manually call out or type out the URL instead of using the Django URL name. So I'm going to say, hey, redirect them to payments underscore status. Make sure that you're appending the order ID to the URL that you'll be redirecting them to, because it's very needed. And make sure that over here, you're also appending the payment status. So payment underscore status should be equal to then paid. Very good. So if for any reason payments didn't go through due to the fact that session payment status is not paid, then you want to go ahead and say failed. Please take note of where I called this field, just below the if statement that checks if session.payment status for Stripe is paid. Okay, so when you have done that, that is everything that you want to do. You can now go ahead and run your server. And while that's spinning up, let's create a new URL. So over here, I will call this one Stripe Payments. And I will call the next one Stripe Payments underscore verify. Okay, so take this, and I'll use it to create the name and also to create the path. Good. All right, guys, so that is it. Why is our server taking some time to run? Okay, there you go. It's working now. So what we just need to do now is open up the checkout page. So I'm gonna open up the checkout for the store, and I want to locate the button that asks us to pay with Stripe. So I will scroll all the way to the bottom till I have this one here that says pay with Stripe. That is just an A tag. I will change it to a button, and I will change its type to a submit. Very good. And after you have done that, let's make sure that it has everything that we need. I think it's okay. Just scroll down to this section. There will be a script here for you for Stripe payments. All you need to do is see this ID here called Stripe payments. You need to make sure that you are adding that to the button here. So add Stripe payments as an ID to the Stripe payments button. Very good. So let's see. Now over here is where you need to pass in the user email by saying order.address.email. Good. Now let's go down. Here is where you need to pass in your public key. So for the public key, let me show you how to do that. Scroll all the way back to the checkout page, and this is it here. You want to duplicate this, and let me see what I called it. Stripe public key is what you should name the key over here, and the value should be what we have created in the settings here. I hope this makes sense. I hope it's clear. Just like I said in the past, don't worry about all this. In the upcoming months or weeks, I will launch an application that will actually break all this down for you step by step in a written format with images, so that if for any reason you're not able to follow along with the pace of the tutorial, you can at any time you want go through the file or the document and follow this step by step at your own pace. Okay, so if for any reason you don't understand this, all this will be broken down in the documents that I will be releasing in a couple weeks from now. Okay, so that is it. Let's take the Stripe public key and make sure that over here you are adding it here, just like that. Okay, and after you have done that, let's see. This one over here is the Stripe payment. Remember that it takes order ID. So here will be order underscore ID. And as we keep going down, email here becomes this email that we assigned over there. And we log response. This we redirect. Now this is where we then redirect them to that session ID. Remember the session ID that we sent from the views over here. Let me show you. So do you remember when we sent this session ID to the front end, this one, we we sent it in this key, right? That is basically what we are grabbing here. That is what we are grabbing here. See, session dot session ID. This is as good as saying the response that we got from the server, grab session ID from the response. Okay, now this session keyword over here, you can call it whatever you want. You could even call it response, and it's going to work very well. But just to stick to the documentation and how I got this piece of code, I'm going to stick to calling it session. Okay, in case there is an error, this will catch the error and alerts it for us over here. And this one is going to log the error. Now that is about it. Let's go ahead and run this, see how everything goes. I will open up my, that shouldn't be localhost, rather port 8000. And I want to create a new, or I'm going to add this to carts and also add this to carts. And for now, I'm not signed in. So let me go ahead and sign in. Whoops. I don't actually have an authentication system yet, I believe. Let me see. I will sign in from the admin. Okay. Don't worry. We'll create an authentication system in, I think when we are done with everything that has to do with checkouts and payments, then we'll create an authentication system before we then start working on the customer dashboard. So right now I am logged in over here. I'm going to reload this. Don't bother with this. Okay. I'm logged in, but this isn't configured yet. So that's why you can still see sign in and sign up. So all I have to do now is go over to my cart. You should see some items in my cart, and I could even go ahead and add. There you go. See, it updates my cart and it's saying, hey, select an address to continue. But I think there is a little issue. When you click on this, it starts reloading the page. That is very bad. Even though it updates the cart, but it reloads the page. Now let's quickly fix that so you don't have to deal with it. So in the cart HTML, look for the button that redirects, that updates the cart, and make sure that you're setting its type, which is the button type, as button. Because by default, it will be set to submit. Make sure that you're explicitly setting it as button. And if you don't set it as button, it will always try to submit this page because it's all wrapped in a form that has this action. Okay. So when you have done that, if you reload this page and you click on this again, it will not do that. Can you see it just updates the cast for us? Very, very good. Now I'm going to select an address, then proceed to checkout. Good. We have now created the checkouts and we are now in the checkouts page. So in the last one, we already worked with PayPal. In this one, let's go ahead and work with Stripe by clicking on Pay with Stripe. Now it's going to reload this page. You can see, and it's going to send us to this checkout session page and tell us to fill in our credit card to make a payment. So we're just going to say 4242424242424242. Good. And I need to put in some months and year. I'll just say 1234 and CVV 123. Full name on card. I will say Samuel James. And I'm going to go ahead and hit pay. And now I don't want to save this. So we wait for this to actually process the payments. And there you go. It's did. Now it's returning us back to the Stripe payment verification page. So it says descriptor gets for dictionary objects doesn't apply to an str object. Very good. So what is this? I think this error should be related to our payments verification. So in the views py, this is the Stripe payments verify. Let me make sure that, yeah, we have session ID being appended over here. And yeah, it's appended perfectly well. Payments method is also appended perfectly well. Let's see. So what's going on? Okay, I can immediately pinpoint this over here. I think it should be retrieve and not get. So Stripe uses retrieve instead of get. That's what caused the issue. So reload, and there you go. Now all you just need to do is reload this page. Okay, it says no API key provided. Hint, set your API key using stripe.api key should be equal to API key. Very good. Now that makes sense. That is because over here, we are calling Stripe over here instead of initializing this API key also down here. Now, another way to do this is to actually just remove the API key from here and also remove it from here and take it all the way to the top in case you need to use it in the future. Okay, so we don't always have to reinitialize it. So you could just remove it from there and put it somewhere here at the top. Please make sure to fix the indentation so that we don't have anything to worry about here. Okay, now our server has just reloaded. Go ahead and reload this page and it's verified the payment. And it says clear cut item is missing one positional argument request. Very good. That means it has marked this order as paid. Let me hop over to the admin, come over to the orders, and you should see that this has been paid. Very good. But for some reason, this is going to throw an error when we refresh the next time. So just to make sure that it doesn't, I will change this back to processing manually and scroll back to the payment verification page. And in the clear cut items, do not forget to pass in requests as a parameter, because if you look at the function here, you will see that it needs requests to actually work. Okay. So after your server reloads, still reloading, see? Okay, get back here and reload this page. And there you go, payment completed. So you can see that we have been able to make payments. Now this is going to turn back to paid, see? There you go, see, payment completed. So if for any reason a user tries visiting the verification endpoint again, it will just send us to failed and payment is going to be marked as failed. So that is it with Stripe payments. It's actually quite easy. There isn't much strings attached to it. And in case you want to be able to see how much or where this payments actually go through, I believe you should already know how to find this on the Stripe dashboard, because obviously that is where you need to get your API keys from. And also in the ENV templates that I dropped for you below, I have also provided a lot of documentations and links that should point you to the right direction to get whatever ENV you're looking for whatever platform. So please make sure to make reference to that. That is going to be it for this video. In the next one, we'll get started working with some other payments gateways like Paystack and Flutterwave. And for now, MangoPay is going to be on hold because I'm still having some issue getting my API keys and initializing everything. But don't worry, as soon as MangoPay actually checks out for me, I will show you guys how to integrate it. But in the next one, we'll get started with Paystack, then we'll move over to Flutterwave, after which we will start creating the authentication systems. That is it. Do make sure to drop a like on the video, consider subscribing to the channel, check out some of the links in the description below as one of them might be useful to you. Also, I've got a couple of Python and Django courses where we build a lot of applications. Link is also in the description below. One of them there should help you become a better Python and Django developer. And also, I want you to check out Desphixs.io. Just like I told you guys in the past, I am building an application that should help us become better programmers with a ton of features that should streamline our learning experiences. And in the upcoming months, it should be released for everyone to participate in it. And I highly don't want you to miss out on that. So please hop over to Desphixs.io. The link is also in the description below. Drop in your email address and we'll be able to notify you as soon as we go live. That is going to be it. I hope to see you in the next video. And until then, mad love. Peace out.